All right, so the race is over with, and we want to get a little bit of the ruts that we have for the whoops. These things were treacherous. So we did the track walk earlier, and now we get to see how gnarly these things are cupped out. And what I mean by that is probably by the third one, these things are no longer round anymore. We've got huge, huge holes through this, and you can see down the line is that they just have these choppiness in them to where they're curved. They're just gonna bounce back and forth, and that's why we saw Sexton on the last couple laps start jumping through the whoops. The next thing I wanna take you through is these things get much sharper because of the rear end just kicking all the dirt from them. So here, they're tearing down the track, so we're gonna try to do this as fast as possible. I wanna look at the sand section. Oh man, these things look scary. These last couple are super sharp. They're like cones, but like 10 cones. So it makes it to the point where we saw a bunch of guys almost just eat shit, basically, and they did. But this sand, let's look at this sand. So most guys were going to the outside because of these ruts coming up here. So there's no more lip here. I really want to try to get this, but if you can see, that is pretty much a whole mini bike. Their axle is going to get stuck in between this. They're not going to be able to jump over this. That's why the outside ended up being faster. And we saw some pretty good passes from there. But the other thing is I saw a couple riders do this triple after these switchbacks. So let's look at that, because we got to be a real deep rut, which sometimes a rut can get it to the point where then you can have an acceleration where you have from the rut, it cuts down to then you make like a sharp lip. So here, I want to see that. So these ruts on the inside, we didn't see many guys go on the outside, but they are about the size of my forearm. Crazy that these guys can just come through here and make it clean. But just like what I was talking about is this super deep rut, but it creates a G out. So then you can jump. And we saw Kenny, I believe Kenny did it in the actual main event, but I saw Eli do it on press day, but he didn't have a little bit of a G out here from these ruts. And probably the last section that I wanted to look at and show you guys is just a couple of the corners, because the switchbacks, they didn't get super rutty, but they got real slippery, because we saw riders have their ass in, it would spin out. And basically why they would spin out is because they weight that outside peg, they're leaned over, they're getting ready to go, and you have no traction because there's no rut there. So we can see this, and it just ends up getting filled with basically like marbles. So you know when you go to your track and you have a tractor guy and he doesn't water it, but he just tractors it and creates marbles? That's exactly what happens here. So we'll look at the last couple bit. Honestly, I want to look at the rhythm section real quick, see if there's any ruts in between there. And big shout out to Feld for letting us get on the track, because that was huge for them to allow myself the privilege of doing this. But look at these triples, man. Do we have many ruts off this? No, this ended up being packed in pretty well, so there wasn't that many ruts. But in the corner before, guys were having to go lower and lower because the outside, you just get to have a really big rut. And the rut is basically the size of a truck. And man, again, this is a 90-degree essential berm. Man, it's maybe more like 75, but you have 1, 2, 3, and these guys, again, here's my iPad, right? It is the size of my iPad, which is freaking crazy. So from there, we got to make it to press here, but I want to see one more small little G out on the rhythm section, because we only saw Deegan triple in to this big guy. So we'll run over here, make it to where Those triathlon trainings are good. Keeps your heart rate low while you're jumping. But landing off these triples and then have to then pick a rut in the air is insane. This is what separates the men from the boys, because that is a big triple. And I saw really good riders jump it on the first lap of Bro, those guys are awesome. Those guys are awesome. But then being able to land and pick a rut is incredible. So we'll see the next little G out. These guys are awesome, right? And I'm sure their favorite rider won. But here, do you see this? When they land on this guy, and again, I'll use my iPad as reference here for these ruts, okay? And it's about 3/4 of the size of the iPad, which is gnarly. But anyway, I gotta get to press, but I appreciate every single one of you guys. And until next time, let me know if you want me more at these races, and we'll go from there. But hit that subscribe button. Appreciate you guys. Rut that got the hole shot, and unfortunately, Tomac ended up falling down. But this guy was a little bit off, but it was good that he ended up starting here from the inside. Pretty cool.